Some people enjoy obstacle course racing. Others can get obsessed with long-distance ultra running. But it takes a special kind of crazy to step up to the challenge of combining the two. And that's what Rachel Waters and a few select others did, competing in the world's toughest mudder. This course consists of a 5-mile loop with over 20 of some of the most challenging obstacles imaginable. And what makes this race so different is that it's an endurance event. This race is 24 hours, as many laps as you can complete. And this is where Rachel thrives. Believe it or not, this is her happy place. Completing 14 laps, covering over 70 miles, with more than 350 obstacles, Rachel demonstrates the ability to endure and overcome any challenge, whether it's on the course or in everyday life. This Spartan warrior possesses an inner courage, a belief that makes her stand out. So join me in finding out what fuels her fire and what ultimately sustains her drive in my recent conversation with Rachel Waters.
I was a pretty mediocre athlete in high school, but I stuck with it. And then running became a really important part as I progressed through being an adult. And when I went to Georgia State, I didn't run for them, but I worked full-time, took full-time classes, worked, and went running. If you're going to hang out with me, that's where I'm going to be on Saturday, right. So you can either stay at home or you can come run too.
Absolutely. And you like to do your exercise in the morning, don't you?
You know, I do. I
awesome.
Think that starting your day that way. Obviously, some days I can't, but
why is that?
Work or busy. There's because I may have to. Sometimes I do open enrollment meetings where I have to be doing a meeting at 6 a.m. or something.
Oh, okay.
So,
No kidding.
Yeah, so I can't get it in before.
No
or
kidding.
I'm human. There's some days where I just wake up and I
not feeling it.
Or I'm tired. But for the most part, I try to knock.
I assumed you were a robot.
No.
Quite honestly.
No. What do you mean?
Because you're a machine, man. You're like the Terminator.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Like you have a wallet that says "badass motherfucker" on it.
Yeah, I'm a pretty sensitive human being, actually.
Thanks for coming out.
Yeah.
Appreciate you working this out. I know this was a little.
Yeah,
everybody when they first do this, especially the ones that don't know me, they're like, "Okay, crazy stalker guy, what do you want from me?
That's
and what's
cool.
your story?"
It's fine.
And thankfully, I have people like David to try to vouch for me, and hopefully. Maybe Scott as well. So.
I'm flattered that you think that I live an extraordinary life.
Well, definitely, yeah. I think that you've got a lot to offer.
I am
think
an ordinary person, though.
We're going into this one a little blind or
That's
like
fine.
flying by the seat of our pants, but we're going to see how it goes. And if not, like I said, we can always
I'll
do it
be
again.
all right.
So. Well, on that note, this is the Extraordinary Podcast, and my guest today is Rachel Waters. How's it going?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Where are we?
We're in the rainy city of Atlanta today. Living the dream.
Sandy Springs.
Yeah.
So appreciate you taking the time to come sit down with us. And I was really excited after stalking you on Facebook and social media for a little while and seeing the exciting things that you're doing with the obstacle course races and how well that you do in those races, having you get recommended to me by David, and then digging in, seeing all the ways that our paths had crossed. I think it was pretty fortuitous that we needed to meet and spend some time together. So
Yeah, well, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So what got you started down this path of obstacle course racing?
I was doing a trail race one day and I started a conversation with someone and they said, "Have you ever tried a Spartan race?" And I was like, No, I haven't. I've heard of it. They're like, "Well, there's one next month. You should do it." So I, for some reason,
do you remember who
signed up.
that person was?
I do.
Who was it?
My friend Cody.
Nice.
Yeah. And I guess maybe he looked at me and thought that I had the body type for it or something.
I was going to say, well, you are like the stereotypical picture of the Spartan racing woman for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah, I signed up.
You fit the bill.
I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. Just showed up by myself and looked around and didn't really even understand the obstacles or the rules. And it was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. When I was finished, I was covered in rope burns and bruises and cuts. I was exhausted, but I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And I looked at my results, and I had run in an open wave And I got, I think, 7th place out of 1,500 women.
Nice.
And was like, okay, this was really fun, but there might be something to it. And so I just kept signing up, and it was
The addiction was born.
it was
right?
there. Yeah, it was immediate. I loved it.
So that you knew right out of the gate that addiction was going to be there. Huh?
Yeah,
That's cool.
never turned back.
So what was your introduction to fitness before that? Obviously, you were pretty jacked to begin with. I mean, so clearly you were putting in the work before you got into the obstacle course racing.
Yeah, my background was in running.
Okay, no kidding. Despite how big you are.
Yeah, that the muscles
usually
came later. You know, it was my body type. I always had upper body muscles, even when I didn't do anything.
You were blessed genetically.
Yeah, it was my genetics, and so I think sometimes you can be successful in a sport because of how hard you work and your dedication, but there are certain genetic components to it, and
Advantages for
having
sure.
different builds. And I've always been a more solid, strong person for a female, and so it just complemented my skill set, I guess. I definitely had the running background, but I had to do a lot of work to be able to get to where I am now. I remember trying, and I couldn't do one pull-up.
I was going to say there's so much strength training involved.
Yeah,
once you
my
cross
grip
over into the
strength
obstacle
was
stuff.
terrible, and I've come a long way. But my background was a runner, so I had that part down. But obstacle course racing, there's a lot more to it than just the running.
Well, tell me about that. Tell me about your introduction to running and how you got started with that. And one thing that I'm always fascinated by, and I think one thing that you and I have a lot in common with, is the trail running aspect. So tell me about I'm sure we all kind of get introduced to running kind of the earlier age or whatnot, but tell me about like that trail running experience for you.
Yeah, I was a road runner. I liked to do little 5Ks and stuff, and it was okay. But one day my sister and I, who's also a runner, we started running together.
And we should mention your sister.
Yeah.
You have a twin sister.
I do have a twin sister.
Rebecca.
I do. Yeah.
Becca.
Yeah, I call her Becca. She's formerly known as Rebecca.
We went back and forth, or I went back and forth about whether or not to do you guys together as one interview or to do you separate. So we're gonna see how this one goes. We might pull her in here for the second half of this one.
She's got some good stuff to say. But I signed up for a trail race because I didn't realize that it was significantly different than a road race. And I remember showing up with my road shoes and slipping and sliding all over the place. And 5 miles felt like an eternity on the trail. Was definitely out of my element, but really enjoyed that. So it was a progression of road running into trail running, and then from trail running into obstacle course racing, because obstacle course racing is trail running. There isn't any road running in
Right.
So.
Well, it seems like you found the more difficult path, and we're drawn to that with each step. You know, like you were drawn to the running because it was difficult. Then you were drawn to the trail running because it was a little more difficult. Now you're drawn to the obstacle course racing because it's even a little more difficult on top of that. So
yeah,
like, you just you like the hard stuff.
Yeah, it's the challenge.
Well, I'm fascinated by that because it's the hard stuff that's the rewarding stuff.
Oh my gosh.
You know, that's the stuff that you value and appreciate. And for me, that was my draw to triathlon, is because it was so hard. And if you didn't put in the work, you couldn't finish. You didn't have enough whatever, that oomph, that gut stuff like you're talking about, to be able to make it to the finish line. Like your body just would give out on you. So like that was what the appeal for me was. Like it was so hard. It's like you had to put in work just to be able to get to the finish line.
As any endurance athlete, it doesn't matter what the sport is. If you're a cyclist, running, triathlon, obstacle racing, swimming, the joy of it is that I can only speak for me, but I'm thinking that you'll probably agree with me. I've never had a race or even a training run where I haven't at least one time wanted to stop. You know, it's not like running feels good all the time and you love it. Every single time
through the field.
Yeah, every race that I run, I do have a thought of, why am I doing this? This hurts. I'm tired.
Or I'm going to puke now. Or
yeah, and you know what is so beautiful about it is that feeling when you cross the finish line or you stop your training run, whatever it is, and you didn't. I think people get confused about, oh, you run. Okay, well, you're smiling and it's rainbows and sunshine when you're running your race. No, it hurts and I want to quit. And my mind is telling me all of the things that your mind is telling you to. And all of these things surface, your worst fears, your anxieties, every doubt you've ever had in your other areas of your life start to bubble up. And, you know, being an athlete and completing an event like that, it's not so much the physical it is, but it's really fighting that mental piece. And that's what's so rewarding about it.
I love that you said that. It makes me think of, I forget who it may have been Rich Roll that talks about it, but it's like how you approach that threshold of where you can't go any further, and you approach that threshold of like over the edge, and you get comfortable with being close to that edge, and then you learn how to keep pushing it a little bit further and a little bit further, and the more that you go through and the more that you do it, you build that resolve, you build that toughness that knows that you can like push through. You can see it all the way through to the end.
Yeah, it's interesting because I love to meet a lot of the people in the sport that I'm in. There's just so many wonderful people. And it blows my mind when they congratulate me about a finish or tell me how great I did. And I'm just dumbfounded. And I look at them, I say, we did the same course.
Yeah.
I might have done it a little faster than you, but we fought the same battle. I am no different.
Yeah.
We share that.
Well, and for what it's worth, like I've done pretty much, I think, most of, if not all of the obstacle course races at some point in time or another, and I've never raced one. I've always just run them with my buddies. Like I race the trail runs, and I treat those like races, and all that. Because I started off with Tough Mudder, and Tough Mudder, there's obstacles you can't get through on your own, so you have to do it like as a team kind of thing.
The format of it's different.
So like even with that one, like you had to be with a team to get through the obstacle. But I've always just kind of just run them for fun, just hanging out with the friends.
You should consider racing one.
Well, there's no sense in it because there's no way I can compete with that crowd.
You're just competing with yourself, though.
I have more fun doing it with my buddies, because quite frankly, like I wouldn't even sign up for those races in particular because I kind of have some qualms about that. And I was thinking about like going toe to toe with you about some Spartan stuff if I wanted to, but particularly those stupid registration fees drive me crazy. But yeah, I always had more fun. Like the whole reason why I was there was to do them with my buddies and just to be hanging out. And so,
unfortunately, most people can't keep up with me. So anytime I've tried to run with somebody, it's to my own detriment because they end up being dead weight, Yeah. And I can't run in the open waves because I'll just run people over.
Right.
Not aggressively, but my mind is
get ahead of steam going. Man.
Yeah, my mind is set to just go.
Bound and determined.
And how fast can I get through that? And
well, you definitely gotten some great pictures and some great content from doing all those races for sure.
Yeah, they've got great photographers.
They've got some really good photographers.
We only do it for the Instagram.
right. If it's not on social media, it didn't happen.
Exactly.
Well, and that's an interesting component of it because I think leveraging social media is super important. And so tell me about how you play that balancing act of trying to be a good example on social media and sharing your success and even your struggles, quite frankly, but still not come off as braggadocious or like, because I know you and I both worry, like we don't want people to have an opinion of like we're trying to think we're better than anybody or we're trying to show off or anything like that. So, but at the same time, we want to put stuff out there that inspires. Like that's, I think, another big thing that we have in common is trying to inspire other people to want to change, want to motivate them to do to get outside their comfort zone, quite frankly. How do you juggle that balancing act?
It is difficult because at the end of the day, you're putting out your content. So social media can be kind of a selfish thing when you're just sort of talking about your own successes and your thoughts. But I really try to use social media as a tool to reach people in a way that I hope that I can have a positive impact for them, to show them, I finished well on this race, not because that makes me anything better or special, but so that they can see, hey, wow, Rachel finished well at this race, but man, she struggles with some of the same things I do. And it is possible as a human to struggle, to come from broken past, to have self-doubt, to deal with addiction, to deal with all of these things of being human and still be successful. And it doesn't mean that you have to run an obstacle course race, but whatever that thing is that you want to achieve, you can do that. You don't have to be a perfect human being. So it is a balancing act, being able to try to spread a message. And, the truth is as well, the pictures help people read the message, right. Whether we want to believe that or not. As a female, if I'm putting out pictures and content that look really badass or show a muscle or show something really cool about the aspects of the race, because a lot of people really don't know what's involved in it, so they can see the pictures. So it is a balancing act of trying to have some imagery for social media, but then also pairing it with a message. And my motivation is really that message of trying to inspire and help other people, because a lot of the things that I've dealt with, I know other people do too. And I hope that even if one thing that I say helps one person turn a little bit in their lives, then it's worth it.
Yeah.
It's worth the handful of people that may criticize me or think that, I'm bragging.
Ignore the haters. Yeah. Are you familiar with Kate Parker? She's a photographer. She did that campaign, Tough is the New Pretty. Her main picture is her daughter in a triathlete in a swim cap thing, and she's looking real tough. And
no, but the premise of it, I understand.
She's brilliant. I just got her book. She's so good at that. I already recognized the pictures because I'd seen a million of them before. But when I got the book and I read the quotes that go with them, just reading these quotes, because the pictures were great, but then when you read it spoke so strongly. I was really surprised at how much it touched me. It was pretty crazy, but I was really impressed with her ability to do exactly what you're talking about, convey that kind of message.
Behind any athlete is layers and layers of a mental battle and mental fight. It's not just about lifting weights and training in a sport. There's a huge mental aspect behind any athlete in any sport that's been built.
I find too with endurance athletes, and I'll only speak for myself on this, a lot of us are dealing with some pretty big demons and stuff. That's why we've chosen this path, because we need that mental toughness to deal with some of the stuff we're trying to deal with. So
yeah,
anybody who thinks that these pictures of people doing this hard stuff, that they've got it easy or that it's some easy ride. Usually they're doing that because they've dealt with some really, really dark things. So
I've used the example in the past. I had a Spartan Ultra, which Spartan does a 30-mile distance, and that's my favorite. Actually, you do their beast course twice.
So that's like a 42K or something like that.
It's a 50K, so it's 30 miles.
Nice.
You do about 80 obstacles, and they do them in some really nice venues and ski slopes, and that's my favorite. And there's nothing soul cleansing. It's like a wash rag, just wringing yourself out on a course and just breaking yourself down mentally and physically over and over and over, and just the way that you almost are purified after that. And anything that was in your mind, whatever you're fighting, whatever addiction, trauma, whatever you individually are facing as a human, there is no better way to clean it and wring it out and face it all and deal with it than you versus you going up a mountain at hour 8 or 9 of this thing.
What was your toughest loss?
Athletically?
Or I have another one too. I call them my favorite failures. Do you have a favorite failure? A miserable experience that made a lasting or enduring impact?
It's hard to pick one because I fail a lot.
We all do.
But I do.
That's how you know you're doing it right.
I do. I had one race back in, I think it was 2016. It was right when I started racing, and it was this championship race. It was a race series called Battle Frog. And they had a championship race in Florida, and they had this big rig. And for people that don't know what a rig is, it's similar to monkey bars, where it's a big setup that you have to complete. It's a lot of grip strength. Think American Ninja Warrior, swinging from things. You're off the ground.
Right.
They had this rig, and this race was one where you had to complete an obstacle. It didn't matter how many times you tried. You could stand there and try as many times as you wanted to, but you could not get through it and finish without a DQ unless you got that. Yeah, and so it was this big championship race. It was really hard. It was about 10 miles. You actually do the same loop twice. So this rig was 100 feet before the finish line. And I got through it on the first lap. And on the second lap, I got stuck. And I stood out in the sun in Florida for hours trying over and over. And I ripped my hands wide open, and there was no water, and I was baking. And I just fought against myself and kept trying. And, I saw other girls come through and get through it, and just really got in my head, and it really broke me down. And it changed me a lot because I ended up having to drop out of the race because I think I stayed there for about 5 hours at that one spot trying the same thing and never got it. And you get to a point where you're so blown out on your grip,
there's nothing left.
And seeing that finish line and it's right in front of me. That really changed me, and it really lit a fire in me to learn about myself and work on my weaknesses. And it was very humbling too. So that was a pretty good failure for me. I really changed my approach to training. It changed my approach to myself mentally as well of,
Nice.
Rachel, you probably could have done that, but you talked yourself out of it. So really got me on a path to mindfulness and mindset and seeing the importance of that too.
Interesting. What was your first big win? Have you ever had like that aha moment where you realized you were kind of onto something?
Yeah, I
Probably like the first time you
it
placed on
actually,
the
surprisingly enough, it still happens every time I get on a podium because I do the sport because I love it. Sometimes I think I just get lucky to be better at it than average. So even this year, I've had some finishes that you cross the finish line and I'm overcome with emotion because I just can't believe that I did it. I've actually got some goosebumps right now putting myself back there. But I did have one. It was my first year racing, and it was my first Spartan race that I ran in an elite wave. And
you're going before everybody else.
Yeah, and you're
for
in the
people who don't know how Spartan works, you have the general waves that come in around 8, 9 o'clock and go throughout the day. But the elites, the best of the best, y'all go first. You get first on the course.
They're the people that are
early.
racing for time, so we have to follow the rules. We're being watched. We're being videotaped. We're the ones running for the podium, and
right.
I just showed up to this race, and it was a really, really muddy day at this mud park,
Which
ATV
one?
park. I can't remember. It was an ATV park. It was the Atlanta Super.
Down there in towards Augusta or something like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the muddiest races I've ever run.
It's a motocross track.
Yes, and it was really slick. And I'm just humming along, doing my thing. First time running an elite, and I got third. And I was just like, wow, I'm blown away. But really, I every time I get on a podium, I'm still surprised.
Yeah, it's always a shocker.
I'm
to me
still
too.
surprised.
Like,
yeah,
right.
I mean, I do it because I love it. So I still have those moments pretty much every time.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, it's been a little kick in the teeth for me this year. I'm getting towards the back end of my age group, and I got kind of comfortable getting up on that podium for a minute,
Started slacking.
And it wasn't even so much that I started slacking; it's the competition just got better and faster, and I'm getting left behind. And I mean, this year in particular, man, I've really struggled, and it's been humbling. It's been a nice little reality check. It's like you've
got to work consistently because if you're not going to do the work, somebody else will. And
it's funny is that I get that itch, man. If I'm not out there doing it, once I get out of what I call triathlon shape and where you get that certain level of fitness I was talking about earlier tonight, where I know I'm at a certain fitness level, and I'm not there right now, because I've kind of taken a different path, and it's like when I'm not there, I just you start twitching a little bit, you just don't feel comfortable when I just don't feel right if I'm not a little bit sore, if I'm not a little bit worn out, it's like. That's my happy place, That's what feels right to me.
Yeah, I race so much that I'm pretty much always ready. I don't have a season. I don't peak.
Exactly,
I'm not training for one thing. It's pretty much...
You're just ready to go.
I'm always ready to go.
Well, it's funny because I do all the Dirty Spokes races, and I'm so bad about... I do good just to figure out where it's going to be, but then, because he does... so many different events and so many different distances. I don't even know what the distance is when I'm showing
Tim's
up.
races,
right?
Yeah, I've done several of those. They're fun.
My favorite. We just did a podcast last weekend at the one over at Big Creek, and that's one I dislike because my feet are still destroyed from that course over there.
You're probably running out there with all my friends.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people.
There's a lot of fast people over there in Roswell running that race for sure. Again, I wasn't anywhere close to the podium, but my good friend Deanna McCurdy, she's a triathlete. Interviewed her last week, and she, of course, was on top of the podium as always. But she moved out to Colorado and getting her training in there. And I was going to ask you about that. There's such an advantage because a lot of the championships of these races end up being at elevation, Utah, Colorado, stuff like that, or even Vermont, quite frankly. you're at a little bit of a disadvantage because you're training here just a few hundred feet above sea level. Have you considered taking that step going out west and taking that commitment kind of like she did, or what are your thoughts on that?
My family is here, but I do daydream about that.
Do
I
you?
love
I
Colorado.
do too.
It's my favorite place.
It calls to me.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of races at altitude as well. I've done 2 Spartan ultras at altitude. I've been out to Tahoe.
Did you notice much of an effect? Because it
I
destroys
noticed
me.
when I was doing burpees at 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
You know, I actually was not that impacted.
Really?
Maybe it's
Wow.
because I eat a lot of beets or something, and
Is that what it is? The beats make a big. I need to figure out whatever it is because
yeah.
whatever it is, like it impacts me like dramatically. Like I've got family out there, and I even notice it just walking up the stairs.
You know, I do notice it, but somehow when I'm racing,
You can push through.
in the same way I just flip the switch and shut off the discomfort. You know, I've gone out there, flown out, arrived on a Thursday, woken up Saturday, and ran a 30-mile obstacle race at 10,000 feet.
No kidding. Wow.
And still did well. So I think it's just, I don't know if something in my blood makes it a little better, but it's funny because when I get there and I'm walking up the stairs, I get winded.
You can feel it, yeah.
But somehow once I get moving, you know, maybe it impacts me, but I just don't let it, and I
You
keep
probably
going.
have like a low lactic acid threshold or something like that. You've probably got some kind of
Maybe.
like thing.
It's all the
going on
beets,
there.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
Is that what it is? You do a lot of beets? Well, I was going to
I
ask
put
them like.
raw beets in my smoothies. I love
Do
them.
you?
Yeah,
Okay.
because there's a lot of beet products out there.
I
The
see a lot of
dehydrated
them.
beet.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's supposed to help with your, blood oxygen content.
Right.
So I don't know.
I've heard all that
but-
because being in the triathlon world, we're always the first one to get all that weird stuff like beets
Yeah,
or whatever.
but as with anything, I think the natural
The
form
real
of it is going to
food.
be the best. But yeah, I've been at altitude. I've raced at altitude, and somehow I've been able to just push through
What
it.
else do you do nutritionally? Tell me a little bit about that. 'Cause obviously, you're like super fit and stuff, but what's your nutrition like? Anything in particular that you try to focus on?
I try to do things in moderation. I avoid processed meat. I avoid alcohol.
Do you drink at all, or you
A little bit, but
just like a glass of wine occasionally?
yeah,
kind of thing?
occasionally. But I just don't really like to drink because then I wake up and can't go run or work out the
Right,
next
yeah.
morning. So it's
Messes
part of my
up your flow.
lifestyle.
That's great.
I try to eat a lot of leafy greens, fruits and vegetables. I avoid cheese. I avoid a lot of meat too. It's not that I don't eat it and I'm rigid. If I go out to eat,
Right.
I'll eat cheese. I just don't buy it.
Right.
I've read a lot of really interesting books about veganism. I'm not ready to give up all meat and dairy,
Yeah, I
but
could never do it.
how much meat do you really need in your diet? But
I
really,
don't care so much about milk, but I don't think I
Yeah.
could live without cheese.
I do a
love
lot
it.
of Greek yogurt.
Do you see? I don't
Yeah.
like.
Oh, I love Greek
I
yogurt.
can do. I can tolerate regular yogurt, which isn't even that great. So much sugar, but the Greek yogurt, I can't.
People
do
have
it.
this mentality that I must not eat anything bad, but that's just not true. I mean, I'm
No,
human.
you work out too much to not
Yeah,
be able to.
I
get away.
love
You can get away
coffee
with
creamer. I put a
murder.
lot of coffee creamer in my coffee in the morning because I enjoy that. But
Yeah.
you also find that the less crappy food you eat, the less you want. And when you wake up in the morning and feel better because you ate a lot of raw spinach and kale the day before, it fuels you to continue to eat that way.
And what I found is like I start to crave that.
I do.
I crave those leafy.
I crave
vegetables.
my beet
Yeah,
smoothies.
Isn't that crazy? I think
Yeah.
that's beautiful. But the guy that writes the cartoon Dilbert, he talks about that. He talks about like I don't diet. I don't restrict anything. I allow myself to eat whatever I want. But when I get used to eating healthier things, my body starts to crave that, and I start to want the things that. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I've
It's
never
good.
counted my macros. I don't weigh my
Yeah, I
food.
don't do any of that stuff.
It's really about living a healthy lifestyle. It's not a diet. I don't follow anything. I just make healthy choices 85% of the time.
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. Healthy choices most of the time, and every once in a while you do. You have your moments.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. So, what are those moments? Well, when Rachel's 2:00 in the morning having that late night whatever, or take your poison whatever. What is that for you?
I really like pizza. So pizza is something that I just enjoy. I don't care if
New
it
York
has
style thin
cheese.
crust,
I love that
cheese.
thick crust,
I
all the
like
bread.
more the Chicago style.
Yeah,
Nice.
Chicago. I love desserts, so cakes. The thing is, I just don't buy it. I don't keep it in the house. So it's easy to not eat it if it's not around. But if I go out, I love hamburgers. I really try to avoid French fries.
And
And
so that's
things
kind
like
of like your
that.
treats are when you go out to eat. Then you don't have
That's
to
what I
worry about
do.
it so
I
much.
don't
Right.
keep crap in my house.
That's a good
because
way to do
then
it.
I can't eat it.
Right, it's not
I
around.
love peanut butter. I probably
You don't
consume-
eat peanut butter,
No,
though?
I said I love peanut butter. I eat a lot of it.
Okay,
yeah,
okay, yeah.
I eat a lot of it. But
Gotcha.
peanut butter, if I cut peanut butter out of my diet, I'd probably lose
Well, that's such a good
5 or
protein,
10
too.
pounds.
Well, I tell you what ruined me is I got introduced to the honey roasted peanut butter.
Oh, honey roasted.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, dude,
Peter
that
Pan came out with it
killed
first,
me.
and now everybody else has
Ugh,
it. But
I can't go back. That's all. I mean, I don't eat a lot of it because it's so much. It's so bad.
I consume
But
a lot
I
of
mean, it's just that sugar, man. That sugar kills me.
But if I
every
want
time.
dessert at night, I put peanut butter on a banana, and that does it
Nice,
for
good.
me.
Yeah, that's excellent. What's something odd, weird, or different about you compared to most people that has contributed to some of your success?
I have an interesting answer to that, and I'm going to really categorize it within the scope of the sport that I do to keep it
Okay.
really as an odd thing. I'm a 420 friendly athlete,
Awesome.
and a lot of people have stereotypes that you can't do that and also be a successful person, a successful athlete. So I think that's
Another
something
thing we have in common.
Yeah, I think that's something that sets me apart because, again, I think there's a lot of stereotypes out there that people that consume THC and cannabis are lazy and unmotivated and
Right, the stoner on the couch mentality.
yeah,
kind
I'm
of
eating
thing.
potato chips and playing video games, but I'm a successful, educated person. I'm a homeowner. I'm competing at an elite level as an athlete, and I think that's something that definitely sets me apart. I'm definitely an advocate for the legalization of recreational use, trying to break that stereotype and the stigma around it. So much bad news and education out there that people don't understand.
Well, I think
so-
that's definitely changing quite a bit. I think
Yeah.
that tide is probably turned, particularly with the CBD. I'm really impressed with how they've been able to market that aspect of it. Deanna, the lady that I interviewed last week, which has a special needs child, and she moved to Colorado for triathlon. I mean, there's no getting around it. That's what she went there for. But one of the added benefits of that was her daughter had seizures, and they were able to treat that with go out there and get that treatment for her. And it is an absolutely beautiful and amazing thing, man. And anybody that wants to talk about how that shouldn't be legal or there's something wrong with that, I mean, how can you have that argument when you can see the results? When you
I
can
would
see the
argue that
good it's doing?
McDonald's has killed more people in America
clearly.
and contributed to the decline of our health as a society
Yeah.
and our well-being.
Well, and my whole thing with that is like, I mean, if you really think that you're getting some kind of advantage or like there's some kind of, do you feel like it's a competitive advantage? Because me personally, and just based off my own personal consumption, I swear up and down by it, but I don't look at it as a competitive advantage. I look at it as a little bit of a disadvantage, probably,
Yeah, I don't even know I don't know if I'm, scientifically qualified to answer
Right.
that because, some people could go out there drunk if they want to, and that may be an advantage for them.
Well, they're not gonna, no, you're not going to last 5 minutes on an obstacle course race.
So
That's not gonna end
I
well.
don't know. For
That's
me,
gonna end in an ambulance.
For me personally, I consider it an advantage because
do.
how I got into the use was really on the mental health parts of it. I have dealt with a lot of anxiety and depression. I was on very heavy antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications, and I'm not on any of those anymore. So it's
Beautiful.
been my natural source for mental health.
And there again, it just goes back to how much sense it makes. And I mean, if you think that's not a better alternative than Ritalin and some of these other anxiety
Chemically
drugs, dude,
engineered
I
pills that people are consuming and they don't even
because
know what's in them.
The evidence just speaks for itself. I mean, you can try to have the argument, but when you see people, I don't know. Yeah,
like
It's-
I said,
it's hard.
when they legalize, weed, I will be excited about it.
But
because-
I think that is coming. I think it's coming for
Yeah.
everybody, and I'm very glad to see that. I do feel like that tide is beginning to turn, and I think it's been a long time coming, and I couldn't be happier about it. I think it's great. Do you feel like obstacle course racing has reached its peak, or do you feel like it's still building numbers wise?
I think it's still building.
Do you think it's still building?
Yeah. I do.
So what do you think is going to be big or what's going to be the next thing with obstacle course racing? What's going to be the next evolution? What does Tough Mudder and Spartan look like, say, 10 years from now?
I don't know that they look that different. If you look back at the history of obstacle courses in the military 100, 200 years ago, it's fascinating. It's about the same. I mean, you're looking at ancient Greek competition, and a lot of it hasn't changed. I think it's so in line with humanity and sort of the human spirit and overcoming that I don't see it going away. And I've watched the sport explode in the last few years since I've been on the scene. More stuff on TV about it. There's all of these different shows. The popularity of American Ninja Warrior, this fusion really of sports that have all grown out of, CrossFit, American Ninja Warrior, parkour, really trying to find the ultimate best athlete. And I just don't think it's going away. I think it's only growing. I haven't seen a decline. There is definitely a saturation in the market now of
because there's
brands. It's gotten
many.
So big. I mean, there's a million muddy events out there that you can do. And I've watched new companies start and sink and go out of business and all of that. But I think that at the core of it, it's not going anywhere when you look at your big players like Spartan and Tough Mudder.
And each one kind of has their own little angle, their own little take on it. So what was it about Spartan? Because Spartan seems to be the one for you clearly, right? What was it about Spartan specific that drew you to that one compared to maybe some of the others?
It's a few things. One is that
because it's the hardest.
Well, it's
right?
hard. Yeah, they just do a great job. They're organized. They have so many different events. They have some of the best venues. Part of what racing has done for me is given me an opportunity to travel. I call them racecations. I go out to California and see Tahoe and, the mountains of Vermont and Colorado and Canada and all these beautiful places to go run races. And so,
it's like the perfect excuse that
it
you
is.
need, right?
Like I said, I call them racecations. But really for me with Spartan Race is, the founder, Joe, he really has this message that speaks to my heart. And he wrote a great book called Spartan the Fuck Up. And he wrote it a while ago, right at the beginning of all of this, probably 7 years ago. And it's really a great book. And, his message is about people changing their lives through obstacle course racing and how it betters you as a human, and ripping people off their ass, off the couch, getting them onto courses. They grow, they transform. The way that not only what you do builds your physical body and even your mind, but it just translates into all areas of your life. And so I think that his message has been something that I've really followed and respected. A lot of the other races are kind of in it. It's a business. It's profit. It's fun. But I think that Spartan is unique in their message of transforming and changing the world and starting it with each individual person on course.
Nice. That's right in line with what we were talking about.
Yeah.
One at a time. That's really cool. That's beautiful. So what other books have made a big impact on you besides that one?
Okay.
Anything that you're currently reading?
I read the same books over and over again, and I don't read as much as I want to. I have a job where I sit at the computer, so by the time I get home...
you're reading all day on that computer
Yeah, I've
screen.
kind of gotten into Audible, but I've got a great book on daily meditations I do every day. But I would say if there were a couple of books...
Well, hold on. You said you do a book for meditation?
Yeah, it's got just 365 days. Every day's got a different message.
Just like a little
and then there's a meditation
kind of
exercise after.
Gotcha.
There's probably 3 or 4 books that have changed my life. Spartan the Fuck Up was a big one. When Things Fall Apart by Pema Chodron. She's a Buddhist teacher. She's a very famous Buddhist teacher.
I don't think I'm familiar with that one.
She's great. She's great.
I love it when I get the new book.
Yeah.
Add to the list.
This one's kind of interesting, the Bhagavad Gita, which is a
that
very
one,
old
Bhagavad
book.
Gita.
But just the awareness and that was the first
I read that one at Georgia State.
bit of
First
awareness kind of I learned, so that was a good one. Another interesting book. I've read a lot of, and I'm not a Christian, but I've read a lot of C.S. Lewis's theological writing. That really made me start to ask questions about life. Nutrition-wise, this book called Eat to Live by
I'm
Dr.
familiar.
Joel Furman.
Yeah, that's a great book.
So just this handful of books that have just had impacts on
Which
me.
one have you reread the most out of all those ones you just mentioned? Because it's got to be one of those, right, that you reread
I would
over
say
and over again.
Pema's book, When Things
yeah.
Fall Apart.
Nice.
Yeah, it really taught me a lot about awareness and the human condition and, learning to take control back of your mind. So,
How else do you get your knowledge, your information? How are you consuming content?
the internet, Netflix, talking to people. Really I think talking to people is the best way to learn because
Unless they're full of crap.
yeah, well then you learn, and then you learn all the
You learn
crap
that.
too.
Yeah, right.
Just engaging with other people,
Yeah.
listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks.
Do you have any other podcasts besides this one that you're a fan of?
I listen to some of the serial killer ones. I really like those.
The murder mystery stuff, the story.
Yeah,
stuff,
and I actually sometimes have
Excellent.
commitment issues, so some of the podcasts listening I don't keep up with.
Right. It's impossible too, though. I mean,
There's so many.
Yeah,
but
there's so. I mean, I have a hard time keeping up with my own, and like just the 2 or 3 that I'm like really like. I've got friends that are doing it and stuff like that, and it's so hard.
Yeah, I love Joe Rogan. I mean, I
Of
think
course,
everybody.
yeah. I mean, he's
loves
the
Joe
go-to.
Rogan.
Everybody loves Joe. That's the.
But
the high in
actually,
the sky.
sometimes I find that listening like that is a distraction for me, and I use it to tune out what I really need to do, which is to think. And so I actually have found that.
Well, it sounds like some of the books that
Yeah.
you get kind of guide you towards some of that thinking. I mean, you're going with some thinkers over there. with
I'm
Bhagavad
trying to.
Gita and some
My
of those.
brain
I mean,
moves a lot during the day, so I've had to learn how to quiet it.
What's your ratio of consumption of audiobooks to regular books?
I would say it's about half and half.
50-50. No kidding.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
In Atlanta traffic, audiobooks are awesome.
Perfect. Yeah.
When you're just stuck on the highway or even going running, it can be a more meaningful use of my time. I do love to listen to my rap and hip hop when I'm running, but
For sure.
Sometimes I can just take a break and, listen to some stuff that'll make me think, but I also try not to get lost in it.
What's the music that really gets you going when you're having a tough go of it? What's the one that
All
pumps
that
you
dirty,
up?
nasty
Yeah,
stuff.
that's what I figured out. So tell me which one.
Yeah, oh my
What's
gosh.
on the playlist right now? What were you listening to before you came over?
I'm a big Drake, Lil Wayne, Kid Cudi, Kendrick Lamar.
You listen to Run the Jewels. You familiar with that? Killer Mike and that dude from New York.
I listen to
You
everything.
need to check out Run the Jewels. It's some really powerful, motivational kind of.
Yeah, and one thing I do is it's really hard
But
to
it's dirty too.
bring.
It's ugly.
You can't really bring headphones and stuff on an obstacle race because you
No.
get completely submerged in water. So
Yeah, that's not
that
gonna
is
work
one
out
thing
well.
that's a little different as opposed to running or even a triathlon, X the swimming part. But one thing
Well, you're
I've-
not supposed to wear them in triathlon either. Technically, they'll be
yeah,
disqualified.
if you can't hear. But
Yeah.
one thing I've done on my longer races, and when I say longer, things that I'm out there for, 8, 10, 12 hours, is I've always got a hydration pack on. And I've got a great waterproof bag, and I'll bring my cell phone towards the end. The way that the races are formatted, you get a transition area halfway through. So halfway through, I'll grab my cell phone, throw it in the bag, make sure it's super protected from the water.
Better be sealed up tight.
So when I know I've got about an hour left, maybe about 5 miles, and
that last loop.
that
typically.
last little
Yeah.
bit, I'll put my phone on speaker. I'll just stop for a second, pull it
No
out, put it on
kidding.
speaker, play some music, and it just pumps me up. That it's like my reward. And
Nice.
all the other
That
racers,
victory lap.
it's crazy. I'll pick up my pace and I go flying by other people, and they just love hearing music too because it helps pull you up.
Well, what's cool about that with those races, I've noticed, and I don't know if it's a proprietary thing or how, but there's a lot of racers that when I'm out there with the regular guys and everything that carry a speaker in the pack.
Oh,
That
there's
they're
people
jamming
having the
down there.
time of their
yeah,
life, like
dude,
Bluetooth
it's like
speakers.
a little party, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so people love it when you come up on them. And, when I'm doing these races that I'm talking about, I've been out there I'm doing 30 miles. And I'm passing people that are doing maybe the 8-mile
Right,
event.
the one loopers or the
And
two loopers at best.
It really is a special thing because they see me come by and they know by the colored jersey that I'm wearing, wow.
They sent your first lap around.
Yeah, wow. She's, it's 3 p.m. She's been out here since 6 a.m. and she's moving faster than me. And she's moving faster than me with a smile on her face and bringing some good cheer with music.
and
so
rocking out on the way.
Yeah,
That's
and so it really
awesome.
helps because you pump up other people. And I love the other people. The other people is one of my favorite parts of the sport, just
For
building
me
each
too,
other
for
up. And
sure.
there's that camaraderie in obstacle course racing that you don't necessarily find in some of the other sports that I have found. I can be running neck and neck with a girl and she's in second and I'm in third, or vice versa, and she trips and falls and I immediately, are you okay? And we help each other. And we, as somebody's passing me to take my podium spot, they say, keep it up, you're doing great. And there's just this camaraderie there that I've never found.
But that's the exact same experience for me with the trail running with all the Tim's races. And it's gotten to the point now, it's like, where like I'm catching people by name on the course, or they're catching me by name on the course. We're just so used to seeing each other, and you just have that tight bond. So yeah, that's it is. It's like family. You get this. I call it the clan. It's that clan mentality that you get. It's really cool. That you're right. You don't find it a lot of other places, and I think that there's something different when you find it out there in the woods. Find it out there in the dirt.
We're all suffering. We're all going through our highs and lows, and
exactly.
Sometimes I'll talk shit to people in a nice way. I'll come up on a grown man that's laying on the ground clutching his calf, and I tell him, I say, get your ass up, keep moving.
That's funny. It's funny you bring that up. This past Saturday, I was creeping up on a lady, and I thought she was my friend that I know and I see all the time, and I kind of give her a little bit of a hard time as I'm going by, like, come on, let's go, you got this, come on, what are you doing? Get up, let's kick it in gear, let's go. And it wasn't my friend; it was a total random stranger, and she's giving me this dirty look. And
people like it though, because sometimes.
She did pick up her pace, and she finished right there with me, so it worked out cool.
And awesome. I forgot to mention one book that really, really I loved. I know everybody else loved it too. Was David Goggins' book.
Oh, dude,
I mean, that talk about life changing. I mean, that lesson that we all need to learn, that
talk about a Terminator.
Nobody's coming to save you.
Yeah.
You have to save yourself, and I think I
love that about his message.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I try to do. If I see somebody, I look at him, I say, "You're not done." Get up, keep moving. Your calf might hurt, but you're not going to die. Get up. Yeah, and, I think that message, he's great.
I think you did that a little bit for our David, helping him get through his race with his marathon.
Yeah, I did. I had the pleasure of running his second half of his marathon, and we probably have different versions about how that went, but he did it.
He did. I was so proud of him.
Friends don't let friends run their first marathon alone.
Couldn't agree more, man. Could not agree more. That was awesome that he shared that experience a little bit, and it was really cool. And I always like to hear people's first marathon or whatever, when they hit that wall or whatever, that big roadblock, because I think that getting through that little moment in time, that's one of those mental builders, those mental toughness things that we talk about, where like after you've done that, after you've completed that and you have that accomplishment and you push through, I mean, it's not even so much about finishing the 26 miles, it's about pushing through that moment of failure, that moment of breakdown where like he felt like his IT band was shattered or something like that, which it wasn't. He was just, but your brain comes up with all these different things to like why you can't do it, and
that's
to push
all
through
it is,
that.
Really. I mean, there is the physical training, but I did a race last year called World's Toughest Mudder.
That's an awesome race.
And they moved it to Atlanta. I'll be doing it again in a couple of weeks. And for people that don't know, it's a 24-hour event. They have a 5-mile obstacle race that you complete as many times as you can.
Loop after loop after loop.
In 24 hours.
And you start in the dark.
Yeah, well, we started at noon on Saturday.
Oh, you started at noon, okay.
And you finish at noon Sunday, but you do go overnight.
You go through all the,
Yeah, and this past year, it was 28 degrees. And
they were talking about that. You're
everything
freezing your
froze,
butt off.
and I've never run in a wetsuit before. I had the pleasure of competing in a wetsuit for many hours, and it was amazing because I had not done the race when it was in Vegas. It had been in Vegas for years. They moved
that
it to
World
Atlanta.
Championship, that 24-hour version.
Yeah, they moved it to Atlanta, so I'm like, well, obviously, what else would I possibly be doing?
This sounds like a terrible idea. What time?
Yeah, and I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. I mean, the furthest I had run before that was maybe 40 miles.
Nice.
And so it was an undertaking for sure.
Well, yeah, because once you get into that realm, it becomes a different game. You have to battle with nutrition. You have to battle with hydration, and at a different level. You have to start planning ahead. You have to start with a very specific plan right from the get-go. And if you lose that, then you're not going to make it, right? I mean, you're not going to be able to see it all.
A lot of things can go wrong.
So many things
in 24 hours. And then just the weather, everything was covered in ice. It was snowing. It was cold. It was.
I could not imagine.
But I loved every moment of it. I just got into this zone, and people were dropping out. they had, I think 1,500 people started. I think 300 finished.
Wow.
And I just kept marching on,
Nice.
step by step, just kept
like
moving.
A Terminator, man.
But it really goes back to that idea of it. At some point, your body is going to break down. Now,
Right.
For me, I have a different threshold because I've been doing this. Maybe someone that's listening, their body breaks down in mile 1 of a 5K because they're new to it. It's not a matter
of... It's all about what you prepared it for.
Yeah, it's just at some point, your body's going to break down. And your body can do a lot more than you think it can. It's will your mind accept the pain and keep moving forward? And that's really the allure of it all, of how much further can I push to that edge of the cliff, of what can I get my body through? How tough is my mind to go out there and say, all right, I'm going to do another lap. I don't want to, but I'm going to keep moving and see if I can do it. And, kind of playing with fire in a way. Yeah, I'm thinking about trying. I'd like to do an Ironman for the bucket list. I started swimming. I got a runner's knee injury last year, and it was one of the best things that could have happened to me because I had to take a 3-month break from running, and I was heartbroken, and I'm never going to get over this, but it actually made me a stronger, smarter athlete, and I took up swimming.
Beautiful.
I just started going to the pool, and you should have seen me my first day splashing around, couldn't even get up and down the pool, and now I swim once a week.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about
and achieved yet another higher level of fitness in the process of doing that, because again, there's a swim fit that goes along with that too. Like when you're swim fit, when you can knock out 1,000 meters and no problem, that's a fitness level that's hard to get.
It's been about a year now, so I'm pretty proud of myself. More
awesome.
For sticking with it, for saying I never swim more than once a week, but once a week without fail. No matter what I have going on.
Well, you sign up for a triathlon, you're gonna have to start doing more than once a week.
Yeah. I swim. I've swam a mile now.
Actually, no, you've got enough fitness.
I think I could wing it. The swim's shorter. It's
where it gets interesting is when you transition to open water.
Yeah.
That's a game changer, man. But that being said, I'm going to put this challenge out there to you because I'm going to extend it to David as well. And I just ran into another buddy of mine. He's not on the podcast, but his kids are the triathletes that I sent you the picture of them at the Spartan. I want to challenge all of you guys to do the linear triathlon.
I think I'm going to, I actually saw that one. I think I'm going to do it because.
I think you should. I think it's a great one to start with. I think David Oblas, if you're listening to this, the challenge is coming out from Rachel and I for you to show up as well.
He might drown though unless he gets his butt in the pool.
Yeah, well, he's remedying that. We've already talked about it. So
yeah, I think I'm going to do it because I can already run, I can bike, and I can swim now. So I might as well take it to the next level.
Yeah.
And triathlete to
you're still young and fit, and you can walk on water and all that. But when you get to be old like me, and all those joints and everything start to seize up and not cooperate so well, this is the old man's version of Spartan racing.
I'm going to tell Scott Bennett you said that, and he's going to tell you that age isn't an excuse.
That guy, yeah.
I just saw him last weekend at Savage Race, actually.
He hit me up. He was dedicated that race to a buddy of his that passed, so that was pretty cool. But anyway, he's another great example of just showing like what.
I'll do it. Send me the info for the linear sprint. I'll sign up.
So the challenge is out there. Linear sprint, that'd be a great
challenge accepted.
Great triathlon to dip your toe in, and hopefully you'll kind of get that addiction too. And quite frankly, it's the little push that I need to kind of get back into doing that fitness level.
Yeah, you don't want me to pass you. I'll talk some shit. I'll talk some shit when I pass you.
I don't have any doubt that you're going to be passing me. You'll be gone from me from the swim. I might be able to go long, but I'm slow for sure. So I'm real curious because you've got this Spartan thing pretty well figured out. And you've learned a lot on how to.
I'm flattered that you think so.
Well, I mean, just from having the sheer quantity of finishes underneath your belt, you learned a lot of techniques. What's the worst advice you hear given on the course?
I would say just giving advice is the worst advice that I hear because everybody's different. Everybody has. What shoes do you wear? Do you wear gloves? What do you eat? And there are general principles of you want to wear trail shoes, you want to eat this type of thing. But I think that just giving advice is the worst thing that let people experience it for themselves. Everybody's different. I do see some really funny stuff on course sometimes. People trying to do obstacles. It's like, what are you doing? You are making it harder on yourself. The way that you're trying to do that. But I just think just the sheer quantity of bad advice out there. I will say that if I did have to give advice to anybody,
that was going to be my next question. So what is the good advice from the pro?
Pick your shoes wisely, because I see a lot of people out there with like road running shoes that just don't grip.
No tread at all.
Yeah, but you really can't do it wrong. I mean, everybody's different. What works for me.
Through it, you're all going to be crawling through the mud one way or another.
Yeah, there is no perfect shoe that's going to run the race for you. There is no perfect clothes. I mean, I remember I went up to New Jersey and ran a beast up there, and I wore my Nike trail running shoes, and I got second place, and we were back in the changing tent because they have gender changing tents where you can go.
Right. Because you're going to have to get naked.
Yeah, and you're going to have to put your dry clothes back on, and I'm in there, and there's maybe 15 women in there. There's stuff's everywhere, and I had taken my dirty race shoes off, and I was doing something, and somebody picked up the shoe and laughed and said, "Who in the world ran in these?" And I kind of had this moment where I was almost embarrassed because I was like, oh, well, these shoes aren't as nice, or these aren't what people would expect. And I just kind of said, well, I did, and they worked just fine. And it was a moment for me where I learned, like, wait a minute, there's no special expensive shoe that's going to do it for you. But yeah,
absolutely. Well, and that's so common with triathlon too, because you can spend $1 gazillion in that sport trying to get every little last thing to save an ounce on your bike weight here. Dude, just go out there and put the work in.
Yep. Because, I've seen people win races in road running shoes, wearing an old cotton T-shirt next to the person in the $200 Spartan shoes and the compression gear. So to an extent, gear is absolutely important, but everybody's different, and just do what works for you.
So in that vein, what's your favorite item under $100 that you could not live without?
Like on a race course?
It doesn't matter.
Or just in general? Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's probably
the cheaper
food.
The better.
Probably my coffee maker.
Yeah. Well, that's funny that you say that, because one guy was like an Italian coffee press thing that he carries with him everywhere he goes and whatever.
Yeah, I'm not really a materialistic person. I guess my cell phone's pretty important, but
but that's more than $100.
I would say for racing, probably my wireless headphones that are like $30. But for racing, I would say the anti-chafe cream that I use. Yes. I use it.
What kind do you use?
It's actually called Bag Balm. And it's from Vermont. And the reason it's called Bag Balm is it's made for cow udders. So I guess apparently I've never milked cows, but when you are constantly tugging on cow udders, they chafe. And so it's this cream that they put on cow udders that I tell you, I mean, I put it on for 24 hours. I was in and out of mud and didn't chafe. So I would say, on a course, that $5 to $10 jar of Bag Balm is definitely going to change your world.
Could I just tell you that my answer to that question has always been Body Glide?
Yeah,
that's my answer to that question.
It doesn't matter
Body
what
Glide.
shoes you're wearing.
I don't care. Like, even if I'm not working out that day, I still put Body Glide on. Covered all the bases and
when
make sure
you're getting in and out of water for hours and hours.
It's so vital on that course, man. And on marathons too, because like once you reach that, anything that you're doing for a significant amount of distance like that. Yeah.
There's this certain waddle that men get. Yes. And you can see them and you're like, sorry, buddy, because once you've hit that.
What you're going through. Or they're going like this.
Yeah, once you chafe, you can't unchafe.
Right. And there's no going backwards.
It doesn't matter how fit you are and if your nutrition's on point. If you've got like skin burning,
it will take you down.
That's probably DNF'd more races than fitness ever has. So I would have to say my Bag Balm is pretty.
I'm so glad to hear you say it. I can't tell you how much that just makes my day.
And I'm not a big gear person. I'm really, really cheap.
I'm not either. Yeah.
I buy a lot of my stuff off eBay. My hydration packs, I buy them used off eBay because you know what? I'm going to jump in a mud with them anyway.
You know where I got my hydration pack from? Aldi.
I love Aldi. I got a weight vest from
$8.
Aldi. I love
so awesome.
Aldi. I got a Solomon S-Lab vest that I'd been wanting because they're $150, $200. I found one for $40 on eBay. And like I said, I'm literally going to jump in the mud in this thing.
Right.
My stuff gets ripped under barbed wire. So, yeah.
Yeah, you go through some
Don't waste money on gear. It's not going to run
Especially
the race for
tough
you.
mudders, man. Any of those obstacle course races. I mean, everything's going to be a tinted orange clay by the time you're done.
Absolutely.
For sure. So if you had a podcast, who fascinates you? Who would you like to interview? Or who would you like to hear on this show?
Who would I like to hear on this show? That's a tough one.
Who do you think would be do a podcast with if you had a podcast?
There's a couple in obstacle course racing. They're married. They're the top in the sport.
What's their name?
Ryan Atkins and his wife, Lindsay Webster. They're just phenomenal people and phenomenal athletes. And they're married. They both absolutely crush. They're the world leaders in the sport. And they're both really simple, great humans. And they eat basically, they train themselves. I think they'd be really interesting because they're a little different. There's so much emphasis on people thinking that you have to have high-tech gear and training and sophistication and rigidness in your training and diet. And I think that they live more of this lifestyle that I think is fascinating.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Well, and that's great to hear you say that, because I think that's so much about what all this ends up being about at the end of the day. So many people,
ordinary people that are just doing things that aren't out of reach and they're not out of touch, and anybody walking around can do what I do. I'm not special. I wasn't born some way. I didn't come out of my mom being able to do monkey bars and carry sandbags.
Right.
I mean, it's just ordinary people that make the decision that they love that extra stuff and that they enjoy that pushing and endurance and building a better you through athletics, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that's quite frankly what this podcast has been. That's what I preach all the time, is about how to craft that kind of a lifestyle. It's not about like going on a diet. It's not about like trying to, so many people go to the gym, and that first day at the gym, I'm going to do all this stuff. I'm going to create this new habit. And then they blow it out in one day, and they can't even walk the next day. Their muscles are so sore from overdoing it that one time. It's like all this is about little small steps of progression and little habit changers. And once you can begin to kind of craft that lifestyle and be able to craft a life that you love and enjoy, I think you get so much more reward out of that. And I think that then in turn allows you to do a lot for other people too.
And having to learn self-value, because your body and your health are important. It's not aesthetics. I mean, don't get me wrong, the muscles, the abs, all of that, that's a great side effect of health and fitness.
It's exactly what it is. It's a side effect. It's not the goal.
It's not the reason. And
Yes.
so once you realize
yes.
how valuable you are and that your body is an important tool and you only get one, and if you don't take care of it, you're not living your full life. And so it's having to link the idea of, self-worth and value and life into your physical health. And I think one thing that's positioned me, and I think has positioned a lot of people, is the trauma and pain that you've dealt with in your life. We had talked about this before. A lot of ultra runners are former addicts.
Exactly.
They're people that have been through horrible things in their life. Yeah. And without having been in a darkness, you really don't understand what it's like to then come out into the light. And sports is the same thing. Those dark moments you have on a race course, those dark moments you have in the gym, those dark moments you have when you wake up in the morning and you don't want to go run and you don't want to get up and make your healthy foods. You want to go through the drive-thru and get your Egg McMuffin or whatever. It's, really that it's all tied together. And so I think that some of the painful things that have happened in my life have helped build in me the mental strength and the capacity to be able to handle, I don't throw it at me, Tough Mudder.
Yeah.
What
do you got?
What do you got? Because this girl has seen darker than this, and she's been through that. So, throw some
that changes your perspective too. It's like, it's that whole shift in like what you're capable of. Every time you get a little bit closer to that edge, it pushes how much further you can get the next time.
I would say, a lot of people have been through a lot of things and can use that as fuel.
Well, that's exactly, you use it as fuel to make it through those dark times. You use it to rely on, for sure. 10 years from now, what does an ideal everyday look like for Rachel Waters?
I hope that in 10 years from now, I have built my family, because I definitely want to have kids, and that I'm continuing to pursue athletic adventures that make me happy. I don't know if I'm hoping it's still obstacle course racing, but after my new triathlon next year,
you might have a new hobby
to triathlete.
Well, and I'll tell you, Scott certainly is the exception to the rule, but triathlon is a good transition to be able to maintain that good level of fitness and not crush yourself on a.
I hope that I'm further along in my journey of loving myself and growing as a human, and I'm hoping that within the next 10 years, I'm able to help more people grow and help other people see things in themselves that they may not know, and help other people that are ordinary find that extraordinary thing that really just sets their soul on fire.
What's one thing on your bucket list?
I do have to say the full Ironman.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Do you have a particular one in mind? Is it the World Championship at Kona? Is it
Hawaii is a nice place,
Yeah.
but I'm not particular. But I would say, that's definitely a bucket list
it's
for
more
anybody.
the 140.6,
And
yeah.
as much as I've thought that I would never want to do it, probably 100-miler, like a 100-mile trail race, maybe.
Yeah, an ultra.
You know.
Yeah, for sure. Have you done any 50s or have you stepped into that ultra world at all?
I've hit that level of mileage at World's Toughest Mudder, but
right.
I have not I've done some trail 50Ks, but the problem is I love obstacle course racing so much.
They take up every weekend, man.
Yeah, they take up all my
There's
weekends,
always
and
one you
so
can go hit,
it's
pretty
hard
much.
to build in the mileage
is.
training. And the issue with a 100-mile race is that it takes up a big chunk of time.
It's a part-time job.
Yeah,
It
and then
is.
afterwards,
Same with Ironman, it is.
with what I'm doing now, I can race back-to-back days in a weekend. I
Right.
can race back-to-back.
Do you do like
weekends.
Scott Bennett and y'all have back-to-backs and
Oh
stuff?
yeah. As
So
much
you're a
as
crazy
much as I
Nazi,
can
too.
do it.
Love it. Well, you obstacle course racers are definitely a different breed, and I really enjoy your perspective on a lot of things. And one of the goals I have is to have one of you guys on for each season, and just to continue to get that, for people to continue to hear y'all's perspective. I think it's a very refreshing. People see the toughness and all that in the pictures, and they do such a great job with all the photography. But I think it's important for people to hear from you guys and hear that you're just normal people. Like, you're just ordinary people living an extraordinary life. I mean, you literally are the definition of what we're doing the show about. And when they get to hear that from you, and they get to hear that you deal with a lot of the same struggles, and that you are just a normal everyday person, despite that that pretty facade and all that is probably the most inspiring thing or I'm hoping that's what inspires people to get out there and to try them out. And you getting out there trying the triathlon is right there in that same vein, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my goal, my passion in life is to bring people out on courses and hope that it changes their life the way that it changes mine. And I'm the first person to talk to everybody, and I meet so many people.
Well, that's one thing Scott had said, is how friendly you were and how inviting
I mean,
you were
I don't
in the
care
scene.
if you're
And,
a first-time racer, if you're walking it. I'm just so happy to meet people.
Well, and that's
talk
huge
to them.
in a sport where you get that a little bit of celebrity kind of thing, but to have somebody who's up on the podium, but then down there in the trenches with you and talking to you. And,
We're all equals, man.
We're all
ordinary
going just like you
people,
said. We're all going through the same course
Yeah.
together. So just like we're all kind of making our way through this life. So if you want to put any of your social media information out there, anything else you want to cover besides that we didn't talk about?
No, not really. I started a blog this year. My eventual goal is to write a book just to help people navigate their life and through the channel of obstacle course racing.
Where can people find the blog?
They can find it if you go to my Instagram. It's Rachel, RACHEL _fit_girl. You can find the link in my bio. So just trying to get that out there, trying to help people.
Awesome. I love to hear it. And keep writing, man. I find that it's hard because I'm trying to consistently write, but it's so rewarding for sure.
Yeah,
So I hope you
I've always
keep with
loved
that for
writing.
sure.
It was sort of a gift that my mom gave me.
If you're gifted at
She-
it, by all means, you should really write, because I suck at it, and I'm still doing it. But
I'm okay.
Going
I'm
through the
okay.
motions, but
Yeah, I just need to get it on paper. But.
Yeah. One page at a time, one word at a time. Well, thank you. Really appreciate.
thanks for having me.
Really appreciate your time, and hopefully all this works out. And see you out there on the course, man.
I'll see you at that triathlon.
There we
I'll
go.
be on your left.
Thanks so much. Take care. Hey, y'all. Thanks for listening. So what'd you think? What did I miss? Anything that you wanted to hear that I didn't cover? What do you want to know more about? Who would you like to see on the show? Hit us up on social media and tell me what you think. Check us out on iTunes and please leave a review. We're now on Patreon, and your support there helps let us know we're headed in the right direction. We have a lot of exciting new things coming, fascinating guests, and some of the craziest stories you won't believe. So stay in the loop and check out more great content by subscribing at our website, 8keystoGreat.com. Special thanks to my guests and all those of you living an extraordinary life. This is Nate G. We'll see you next week.